Well, good Monday morning. It's another week. Still in quarantine here in Tennessee. Our restrictions aren't the same as all the other states, but that's what states do. But we're still in that between land where we know that some of the figures are much better than we expected and anyone expected. And that some figures are really tragic when you look at loss of jobs, furloughs, layoffs, and the issue. We want to talk about that. But before I can do that, I really need you to remember a very bad website. Yeah, it's one that Christians should have never gone near. And that's really why it made news. There was a website made that claimed it was for men and women to meet in private. It was called Ashley Madison. And that these are people that were wanting an affair. They were married to other people and they did not want their spouses to know about it. So they would sign up on this computer website so that they could have an affair. And it got blown wide open because two investigations hit at the same time. One, however, did the damage. It found that almost all of the women on this website were not women, but bots, computer programmed bots with generic pictures or pictures stolen from Facebook and Instagram and elsewhere, even from magazines. And it was amazing. The men were flocking in there, but the women were not, and the women were fake. That was big because that means fraud. And the guys that had paid money, I think there was a monthly fee or something for this, they were defrauded, but they most likely would never go to small court to get their money back because they were on a website that they didn't want anyone to know about. And that probably was good for most of the guys. It worked for most of the guys. It wasn't good for anybody. But it blew up when a character in a reality show about Christians with a whole bunch of kids, and I never saw the show. I don't remember if it was 12 and counting or 20 and counting, whatever it was. The elder son, who had already had some issues with the law about being with a couple of underage people, was found to be a professing Christian leader, but also on the website. Oh my goodness. The internet blew up. The news media blew up because that's what news media does in these situations. They find a very juicy story and everybody's very, very interested. And so the national media, local media, we love them. They help us out every day. National media can sometimes find a story and that's the only story in the world. Well, online, people took to their keyboards. I call them keyboard commandos. They come out at every single opportunity. And they started pounding away that, there were this name and that name was found on the site. There were no real sources for this. And even when they did post sources, if you backtracked the sources, you found the sources didn't exist or the sources made it up. It was not good. Well, I can remember all the howling among the church websites and church Facebook, and I was getting all kinds of messages. And there was a theme because a minister stood up and confessed that his name was on the website, and it was a big church, quite the scandal. Everybody was saying, "How in the world?" And that was a genuine tragedy for that entire church and anybody who had trusted him as their leader at that stage. But then this thing came, and people who know and people who are smart, and they can prove to you they're smart because they have an opinion and a keyboard, started saying, well, this is going to be rife. Within the next 2 weeks, we have it on good authority, over 400 pastors will resign in shame because their name was on this website. And I immediately went, wait, you can't know that. That is an unknown that we know. You see, I work with data. I pastor a church, but my mind is still scientific, and that's what I do for fun. And that's how I spend my days often, my days off in particular, and my time off, as I'll grab science and work with it. And I still am involved with it. And I know data. So I posted, I said, for those of you that are saying over 400 plus, please understand something. We don't know whose names were on the website. Only a couple have come out and said, one because they were outed, and one because he feared he would be outed. We don't know how many names were on there. We don't know what the names were, and we don't know how many of those were pastors, and we don't know how many of those will admit it was them, and we don't know how many of those will resign as opposed to going quietly or hoping it all blows over or having their church board reassign them to a different church or something. We've all seen a lot of issues with churches and sexual abuse, so we know they don't always handle it forthrightly. I said, there's absolutely no way that you can use a figure like this accurately. Well, I got chastised. I got email. And a couple of them were from journalists that says, you don't understand how journalism works. You stay in your little puddle and we'll stay in our puddle, and this is a solid number. Okay. 1 year later, the total of pastors whose names were found were still 2. Here's our problem. The people who are right now posting expert opinions on viruses, virology, epidemiology, economy, and how to start the economy are not economists, virologists, or epidemiologists. And in fact, one of the biggest hoax videos going about is a guy who's an engineer, which is a very good science. I love engineering, don't get me wrong. But he's claiming that all the medical doctors are wrong and he's got it figured out, and he doesn't. You look at his background and you can see he has a habit of pulling stunts like this, but people post and people post and people post. I want to warn you that the Bible tells us in the book of James that we have a very dangerous part of our anatomy called the tongue. And it used to be that we would talk more about controlling the tongue. Now we have to control the keyboard. We have to control the phone. Check before you post. And even if who you're posting, let's say, is a world-renowned virologist, that's actually really cool. That's a person who knows his stuff. I'm going to say that again, but I'm going to underline something. Her stuff too. Come on, the medical profession has some amazing women leaders in it. The point is, they know their stuff. A person who knows viruses doesn't know how to start the economy. And I've not met 5 economists who will agree upon anything. So be very cautious. All of us only know one piece of the puzzle. Well, don't let our tongues erase our Christianity. Don't let our tongues erase who we are. We are the people who are to reflect Christ. I'm not on this planet to tell you what to do about a virus. If I have opinions and you talk to me, I will let you know this is my opinion as a person who knows my stuff, but not all the other stuff. Be careful. For example, you can do, right now I see this a lot online, people will do number of cases versus number of deaths, and they're trying to find out a death rate. You can't, that doesn't work, but they act like it works, and you hear reporters yelling that it works and politicians yelling that it works. We don't know how many cases because you would have to have universal testing, something which has never happened in our history. And I don't see a way of doing it until we find some way of scanning people against their will. Because people have religious objections to it. They have personal objections to being monitored. They have, you get the point. We would have to test every living human being that is within our borders and then not let anybody in and out while we calculated the number of cases. Then we'd have to define what asymptomatic means. And believe it or not, that's not easy. Then we'll have to go further and say how many were hospitalized, and sorting out hospitalized because of COVID versus because they had other things and COVID made it worse. And we can have all these arguments all day long. Do you get my point? We don't know the data. Don't act like you do or that you found a source that does, because there's another side to this. Isolation kills. When you are older, alone, in a house full of a bunch of kids, single mamas, been furloughed, lost jobs, prone to depression, you have mental illness, or you have a child with special needs, there's a whole canopy that come out there of different kinds of people who we love, who are our people. And the isolation is driving suicide, alcoholism, child abuse, domestic violence, depression. It is spiking because, again, job losses and uncertainty. We don't know how many that's killing or will kill in the future. So all I'm asking is, as Christians, reflect Jesus, be humble, and remember James 3. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but you need to read the whole chapter because it warns us about our tongue. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by such a small spark. The tongue is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. It's hard to find passages in Scripture that are quite that blunt, and it's about the tongue. It even says that we can tame sea creatures, we can tame land creatures, we can tame birds, but we can't tame the tongue. The great preacher, Marshall Keeble, who once preached in this very building, he preached here several times, said, and I wish I could quote exactly the words, but his concept was, if the tongue wasn't so dangerous, God wouldn't have designed offensive teeth around it. That's a pretty cool picture. Maybe we need to put a sticker up on our phones and our laptops and our iPads to remind us, you don't have all the data. You're not God. Your opinion may not be needed here. If it's asked, make sure you underline and draw big red circles around it saying, this is my opinion, a person who has incomplete data. And let's be humble and let's be kind. And when somebody is brokenhearted because their kids can't play, or they lost their job, or they can't get out of the house, and others are brokenhearted because they're healthcare workers who are exhausted, the money for funding is running out. That's another issue. They are getting depressed, worn out, not eating correctly. Whenever any of these people post their pain online, don't try to use your pain to fight it. Don't use your numbers to fight their numbers. Merely say, we love you. What's the best thing we can do for you right now? Because that's our job. That's our job. I hope you have a blessed week. God bless. We will get through this. We'll be okay.